Okay, in this video I'm just going to try to do some exclusive right-handed throwing, and again I'm going to repeat what I was saying a few minutes ago in an earlier video, that I've just moved into this place, and gosh, I've been so busy with the chores of moving that baseball had to go on a back burner. I'm not in very good shape, even for an old guy, and I am not going to try to throw any kind of trick pitch or any breaking ball or anything. I'm still trying to re-educate myself in how to throw a basic fastball. But I'm trying to do something very differently from my earlier videos when I first started small ball success. I was convinced back then that the way for a shorter pitcher to go with a broader frame would be to try something submarine, or at least something sidearm. And I ignored the evidence. Actually, I didn't know much about the evidence in the old newsreels from the 20s and 30s, but the majority of pitchers back then actually lifted their arm up a little bit above the sidearm level. I would say that is it Edwin Givens? I can't remember his first name, but that guy is a gunslinger. I love watching Givens pitch. I think that his style is probably as much like yesteryears as anyone's you're going to find in the game today. I don't exactly know his dimensions, don't know how big the guy is. It doesn't really matter in a way, but I mean, you can be tall or short and still do this, but I think especially for someone who has a broad body, it pays off to sort of drop down from here and use the breadth of your body to help you bring that ball through. The tall, thin guy is the one who can come from up here. He has that long stride that eats up a good bit of that distance between home plate and the pitcher's mound, so he's already throwing at a shorter distance. And of course, he drives off the rubber, he drives through, and comes from about 11 o'clock. So it doesn't really matter. In fact, I would suggest that if he is trying to do that and he has a broad body type, it gets in the way. I'll bet most of the pitchers of yesteryear who did this sort of thing had broader shoulders, broader hips, and this was just a good kind of a approach for them to take. Again, same caveat that I always issue when I talk about pitching. I'm not a pitcher. I've never been a pitcher. I don't claim to have any special authority about pitching. I just claim to be on your side. I'm a guy of below, certainly for a ball player, below average stature, and I'm trying to figure out how someone of our body type could succeed. Started out talking about hitting on this website mostly, but now I'm really trying to interest those of you who are interested in pitching. I think I'm getting some viewers, probably surprisingly many, who want to pitch, and naturally they're told that why don't you play soccer, or maybe you could play second base, but they're discouraged as pitchers. And here's this, as well as I can replicate it at this point. Here's what I'm talking about, is the old school approach from the 20s and 30s. It's really easy. I'm going to lift up my front foot almost as if I'm, stepping into the stirrup of a saddle, and I'm going to try to give a little hop on the back foot to create extra drive. But I want the front foot. I'm certainly not going to throw over my body as I might if I were submarining. I'm going to open up perhaps a little more than your typical pitching coach would want you to if you're coming from up here. I'm going to open up a little and let that 9:30 slot work on through. Oh, and I took aim on my little pecan tree on the first one. I can do better than that. There we go. I'll tell you, it's really nerve-wracking throwing with a camera running. That thing is only 40 feet away, and I've thrown 2 out of 3 really crappy pigeons. I'm embarrassed. There we go. you imagine what it must be like to try to do this in front of 40,000 fans, not to mention people watching all over the nation? Plus the fact that when you're performing in front of others, you want to get that velocity up there. It's like a hitter who wants to hit the ball 400 feet. I wish I could not think about velocity, and I wish you guys would not do it either. I think the Jugs gun does a grave disservice to young pitchers and probably leads to a lot of arms going under the knife. We don't need to worry about velocity. Just hit the flipping target. Especially if you throw something from any kind of a unusual angle. As I say, I'm not into working in any sort of breaking ball at this point, but you should be able to, some of even the with the seam fastballs that I'm trying to throw are behaving like sliders sometimes. So you should be able to have a killer slider if you're throwing from this slot. That will be your best pitch and not your... Sure, you want to have a good fastball, but you don't have to have a blazing fastball. You do, however, have to learn control. Which is not something I'm excelling at right now. Let me try just one more. And again, notice I'm trying to give a little hop. And I'll tell you one more thing. I did it on that one. I've discovered that I can do this better if I almost short arm it like a catcher throw. I know that your pitching coaches, they call that wrapping, or they used to. They don't want you to do that, and maybe you shouldn't if it doesn't feel good. But it feels fine with me. I need to get it out of the right-hander's batter's box. I'm just throwing behind him now, but I can't get that velocity out of my head. I love the smack of the tarp. So I overcompensated and I threw one. Runners are going to move up 2 bases on that one. Well, that's not bad. Not bad for an old man who's out of shape and out of practice. But look, it's a suggestion. It's a possibility. It's something you could look into. It's something that I don't think the tall, skinny guys can do. It's something that the great pitchers of yesteryear just did forever. Boy, did they have success at it. Stuff like the wrapping the arm a little before you follow through. I will say this, if you do something like that and it feels good and it works for you, then why not continue to do it? If you do something that doesn't feel right, see, anytime I feel any kind of tweak or twinge, I stop. I'm not going to do it anymore. And just because your pitching coach is telling you to do something, if you feel those twinges, I mean, what kind of professional pitching coach would have you continue if you do feel a twinge? But if you have somebody like that, please ignore him. Don't do anything to your body that doesn't feel right. Listen to your body's feedback. Your body's not the same as mine. Mine's certainly not the same as most people's. We need to kind of discover what works for our body type. That's what this is all about. I know there's certain basic parameters that every human anatomy has, but within those there's a lot of variance. So we're trying to explore and feel out that range. Do try something a little different. If it feels good, stop it if it feels bad.